Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines across the continent. 7 people killed in protest in Mozambique as new President Daniel Chapo was sworn in and vowed to unite the country. The opposition continues to contest October's elections results. South Africa suspends its rescue operation at Stilfontein gold mine. Police say they have brought out all the survivors and retrieved all the bodies. And in sport, we now have the groups for the 2025 African Nations Championships. Holders Senegal will face tough countries like Congo and Nigeria, but we'll now have to wait until August to see them in action. Mozambique's new president has been sworn in the capital Maputo. In his first presidential address, Daniel Chapo pledged to promote unity in a nation scarred by post-election violence. Venancio Mondlane, the candidate who came second in October's election, continues to contest the results and called for a national strike in protest. Demonstrations that left at least 7 people dead. Laurent Berstecher tells the story.
A military parade to mark the inauguration of Mozambique's new president. Sworn in following his controversial election, Daniel Chapo vowed to do everything in his power to unite a deeply divided country.
Dialogue has already begun, and we won't rest until we have a united and a cohesive country which promotes the well-being of its people. Social and political stability are our top priority.
All around Maputo's Independence Square, heavily armed soldiers patrolled the deserted streets of the capital. A heavy security presence that highlighted the tense political climate reigning over Mozambique since the October presidential election. Opposition figures and observers denounced a poll riddled with irregularities, sparking widespread protests and a violent security crackdown in which hundreds of people were killed. Opposition leader Venancio Mondlane, who returned to Mozambique last week following months of exile, called on his supporters to keep up the protests and threatened to paralyze the country if the election results were upheld. But while some clashes were reported in Maputo on Wednesday, many residents appeared ready to give Daniel Chapo a chance.
People are tired of all this fighting and killing. I hope the new president can bring about change and enact reforms.
Today is being sworn in, but if nothing changes, we will continue to fight.
Daniel Chapo, whose Frelimo party has been in power for over 50 years, reached out to several opposition parties in recent weeks to unite the country's political class. It remains to be seen whether he'll appoint any of them to ministerial positions, with the makeup of his cabinet expected to be announced in the coming days.
Now, it's the standoff that grabbed South Africa's attention. Hundreds of illegal miners trapped underground at a gold mine in Stilfontein for about 2 months. A rescue operation had finally started this Monday, due to last at least until next week. But in a surprise announcement, South African police said they have ended the operation and that 78 bodies had been recovered and more than 240 survivors been rescued.
The 2 volunteers has since come to the surface, and they have indicated to us that they have combed the surface, the underground, and according to them, they can confirm that there are no longer corpses or bodies underground, but despite or alive persons underground. But despite what they are saying, together in consultation with the mine rescue services, we said we need to do what we call a mop-up operation tomorrow, just to satisfy ourselves and also to confirm what they have said to us.
Let's bring in my colleague Jean-Emile Jamin. Jean-Emile, this is a sudden announcement. It was supposed to last a bit, at least until next week. What happened?
Basically, the police now saying that they have recovered all of the bodies that they possibly could have, 78. And you've heard there from the police commissioner. But now critics will point to the fact that it is impossible to really know just how many bodies are still down in these mines. They are 2.5 kilometers deep there in Stilfontein, and there's many shafts, many barriers to entry. And that's part of the reason why so many of these illegal miners, these zama-zamas, have perished in this process, starting all the way back in around September with this operation Close the Hole, that's Vala Umgodi in Zulu, and basically this operation by the police to close these mines, make sure that no resources get to these illegal miners who they say are taking millions, if not billions of rands away from the economy. And then this standoff between the police and these local communities, these organizations, human rights groups and civic groups that basically led to this entire delayed process. Now the police, having only just started on Monday with this retrieval operation, all of a sudden saying that they have done enough and they've gotten all of these people out. And it must be noted that there wasn't a single policeman who went down there. They deemed it too dangerous, and they actually relied on the community and volunteers, in fact, to go and do those retrieval efforts for them. They're using a system with a crane pulley and a tiny little cage which you just descend down, and some community members, even some former illegal miners themselves, helping the police to go and effect that High Court ruling, which basically said that the police now have to intervene, having delayed this process for so long.
You touch upon a very important point. Why did it take so long for the police to go down? We're talking about security reasons.
Yes, security reasons. What you have to know about zama-zamas and how they're treated, these illegal miners, a lot of them are from a background where there is criminality involved. Certainly, they either find themselves in between a rock and a hard place, and I do excuse that just basically for saying that they are coerced into mining, these huge mining operations which make use of these now extinct mines, if you can say that, these mining corporations which didn't reveal any kind of profit. And so now these miners are caught down there, and they often have to resort to illegal means. There's a lot of gang involvement, firearms being bought up, money, lots and lots of money. And then the police themselves, they know that these are very dangerous places to go into, and especially if you don't have the kind of resources that are needed. It is being described as a smoke out operation by some politicians, which has not been met with a lot of happiness, I must be said. In fact, even yesterday, the police commissioner and the police minister, they went to Stilfontein. They got met and hurled with abuse, and that was just, they was basically saying that it has been too dangerous to basically commit to this operation. So they tried to smoke out the miners back in November. They said it as much. They refused access of entry for any kind of resources, any kind of aid, medicine, which the community groups tried to get through. And there was this back and forth between the High Court and the national services, as well as the groups on the ground. And that has literally lasted up until Friday, when finally the High Court said, listen to the government, you absolutely have to go and rescue these people. And it was very much a trade-off between human rights and legal rights. The government basically saying that they are criminals, they are acting inappropriately according to the laws of the land, and civic groups saying they may be criminals, but you are leaving them there to die. And that is the fundamental question being asked here. At what point does the government have to step in and say, we have to protect people no matter who they are or what they are doing?
And the government took a very hard stance since the beginning. And do you think it might, plus we recovered many dead bodies, do you think that the whole story, the whole standoff will have political repercussions?
We are already seeing, certainly with the opposition groups to the African National Congress, who are the majority party in government. They have the majority of seats and stuff, but they are not actually in the lead. We have seen from the Democratic Alliance, who is in coalition with them, saying that this has basically turned into a farce. So we are seeing some kind of a pushback. Nonetheless, the story in South Africa is not as big as one might expect. And the government has also received a lot of sympathy from people who say that these zama-zamas bring with them criminality, bring with them gangs and all kinds of problems which local communities can't face. You'll hear people saying that Johannesburg itself has turned into a series of potholes, deep potholes from these illegal mines. There's about 6,000, as I mentioned, across the country, and massive revenue also being lost. So while there is going to be pushback, and there certainly is, it's mostly coming from the community themselves and not from political parties, as you can say, because this has been a long-standing issue since these mines basically became extinct. And if you go to these places, I have to say, it is derelict and it is very, very difficult for authorities to get in and make any kind of an impact. So from someone who has actually covered these stories, it is very dangerous. And there may be some kind of sympathy for the authorities in this regard. Nonetheless, there's always a political pushback, and you have already seen that. So
the story might not be over. Thank you very much, Jean-Emile Jamin, for your analysis. Now let's end with a bit of sport, with the draw for the 2025 African Nations Championships. We now have most of the groups. Group A, Kenya, which is the hosts, Morocco, Angola, DR Congo, and Zambia. Group B, Tanzania, Madagascar, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic. Group C, Uganda, Niger, Guinea. And Group D, Senegal, Congo, Sudan, and Nigeria. And just 18 days before the CHAN was set to kick off, the Confederation of African Football announced a postponement. The tournament, initially scheduled to take place in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania this February, will now be delayed until August. Olivia Bizot tells us why.
There are a lot of firsts for Kenya. It's the first time the country is participating in the African Nations Championship. It's also the first time that the country is hosting a major football tournament and the first time that it's organising a draw. But there is still a lot of uncertainty. On Tuesday night, Africa's football governing body, the CAF, announced that the tournament would be delayed to August. It made that announcement just 18 days before the event was supposed to begin.
I think the most important thing is to create the best possible conditions on the ground to ensure that the competition succeeds as it must. And you must have the context of it, that this part of the world hasn't hosted any major competition in a very long time. And context matters. And I think actually we should look at it positively, that in August we'll have by far the most exciting competition. Infrastructure, we are very happy with the progress so far that has been made here. But of course, we should ensure that CAF, at this day and age, CAF competitions are staged in the best possible environment for them to succeed.
The CAF has said that the three host countries, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, are not ready and that they need more time for their facilities to be up to scratch. The governing body did not release the exact dates of the tournament in August, but they have said they will do so at a later stage. Now, this delay does raise serious questions about how ready the three East African countries are to host such events on a bigger scale. The three countries were due to host AFCON, the African Cup of Nations, in 2027, but this delay does not give them a good look.
Olivia Bizot there to conclude our edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.